if we can ask ourselves, on a daily basis, whether you're in a relationship or not in a relationship, how am I witnessing myself? How am I seeing myself? And am I showing up in the way I really want to show up? Am I showing up in a way that empowers me, that is an expression of love at the fullest way that I can be? And if not, what's being reflected back to me? What are the bits that I need to learn? Because I really believe all relationships are an optimal opportunity for us to learn, to evolve.
Welcome to the Thriving After Divorce podcast, where you learn the secrets to reclaim your life and turn your breakup into your breakthrough. Transformation expert, internationally published author, and online show host Tanya Marie Dubé will help you quickly pick up and move on as you tune into interviews with some pretty cool experts from around the world, showing you how to live your best life after divorce. If you're ready to learn the skills to finally put your divorce behind you for good, dig down really deep, and step into your highest self, then you're in the right place. Here's your host, online educator and mom of two, Tanya Marie Dubé.
Hello, hello, hello. It is Monday morning. How was everybody's weekend? I am so happy that you're here with me again in the space again today. This is so cool. I would like to remind you to please like, comment, subscribe, share, and review this podcast. With my online video series, we've reached over 300,000 women all over the world. And my goal with this podcast is to reach 1 million women globally. So with your help, I know we can do this, because when you teach a woman, you teach an entire community, and the love just spreads. So please share this with your community, and let's reach this goal together. So today's interview is with Maxine Clancy. She is a transformational relationship coach with a background in transpersonal psychotherapy and counseling. She is a certified Calling in the One coach and heart math coach. Maxine has been coaching groups, couples, and individuals since 2000, which included facilitating firewalking seminars when she was living in South Africa. She's the founder of the Divorce Detox and Get Divorce Fit online coaching programs. Maxine now currently lives in the London area with her teenage children. She loves yoga, sailing, and art. So what we talk about in this episode, we talk about creating the vibration and the energy around how you want to show up in your divorce. Maxine teaches us how to take back the control, to calm our minds and our physical reactions, and to instead show up in our best light, regardless of what kind of partner you're dealing with as you go through this experience of divorce. So we talk about making a plan so that you are arriving at your best self, and how every situation we are in is our opportunity to learn and to grow and to come to the table as our best selves. So the key to all of this is empowerment, and we want to get you there as fast as possible. So with that said, let's welcome Maxine Clancy. Hi, Maxine. How are you today? I'm so happy you're here with us.
Hello, Tanya. I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so happy. So for everybody who's listening, again, the topic for today is co-creating the divorce that you want in a loving way. So Maxine, if it's okay with you, let's just jump right in.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So the very first question I have for you is to please tell me a little bit what you do and what led you to the work that you do now.
Okay, cool. So I originally trained in transpersonal psychotherapy, which is really a spiritual-based psychotherapy that recognizes everything we need is within us, and our challenges and problems in life are there to help us draw out the qualities so that our soul can be fully expressed. So I trained in that, and then I became heavily involved in coaching, did a lot of Tony Robbins coaching. And originally, I trained as a psychotherapist because I had chronic throat problems while I was in my first marriage, like constant throat issues. And through the therapy, I realized that I wasn't expressing myself, and it led to me getting divorced. And then when I started doing all the Tony Robbins stuff, I met my second husband. And at that time, we then went and set up, he was South African, moved to South Africa and set up a coaching and training company over there. And we used to facilitate firewalking seminars. So up until that point, I'd always done psychotherapy and coaching. And really, I started to work with a lot of women in empowering them to express themselves and to, be their fullest expression. And I was doing a lot of relationship coaching, couples coaching, and just really helping people find love, I suppose. I created a seminar called The Secrets of Dating. And then my marriage sort of into my relationship, sort of 10 years into my relationship, we started to have quite a lot of problems. And 2 years later, we'd moved back to London, and I found out one day that my husband was having an affair, which I knew, like I knew all along that he was having this affair. And every time I kept trying to address the issues with him, he kept denying it and kept saying, no, you know, I'm stressed by business. And we'd lost a lot of money in South Africa, and we'd sort of come back, and, you know, well, 2008, I think a lot of people were under the financial crunch at that time. So basically what happened was I went through this really traumatic second divorce, and, you know, the statistics for second divorces are really, really high. It's about like 67% of, you know, second marriages will end in divorce. Mm-hmm. And I just was like, couldn't believe this was actually happening to me, which I'm sure most people feel that way. So as a result of that, it really led me to refocus my work into helping men and women, but primarily I work with women because women seem to feel more called to do the work at the moment. And it led me to create an online course called The Divorce Detox, and another one called Get Divorce Fit. They're two different courses. One's about healing and one's about, you know, transforming the stress that you feel in divorce. So that's really my story. That's wow. What's led me to where I am today.
That's absolutely amazing. You have such a calling in this area to be learning from these experiences that you've been given to do the work with other people. I think that's fantastic. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's a lot of pain, but isn't that funny when we go through really hard and tough adversity? If we actually work, we come through that fire like nothing else.
Absolutely. And, you know, I didn't realize it then. I don't think I really realized it in my first divorce, but it's really led me to just, you know, love transmutes pain. And what I mean by that is that the consciousness of love. So anything, if you understand power, you know, the map of consciousness, power versus force, Dr. Hawkins' book, anything above a calibration of 500 is love, bliss. Like gratitude is actually 750. So when we raise our vibration and our consciousness, we actually can transcend and transmute pain. And, you know, I didn't realize that in my marriage, I was probably not unconditionally loving myself or my husband at the time. I thought I was. So it's really been a lesson for me of learning to like fully love and accept myself, and also fully love and accept others, even when they're not being the way we want them to be. And that doesn't mean to say we stay with them or we don't have healthy boundaries, but that we can still love the divine aspect of someone, and make choices.
Right. But first we have to be able to see that in ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. We can only love someone as much as we love ourselves. You know, usually our children, we love more than ourselves, often is the case, isn't it? I think you've got children, so I'm sure you understand that.
I totally do. There's nothing I wouldn't do for them. Right.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And I've said oftentimes too, like, you know, part of my own personal history. And I think that because I was lacking a role model for like a mother role model in my life, I often had to step in for myself. So, you know, I kind of was winging it for a really long time, but I now use that aspect in the work that I do with other people too, to be that mother figure for yourself, you know, the way that you would be for your daughter or for your best friend.
Yeah, absolutely. And like your story is amazing. Like you're such an amazing woman because you've overcome so much adversity. And like you say, I'm sure that helps you in your work with your clients. But we really do have to be our own best friend, like kindly, compassionately, you know, honoring ourselves and witnessing ourselves and seeing ourselves. And, you know, I think I don't know about you, but I certainly grew up in a very strict sort of environment, but also like where women are so hard on themselves. And I think we got to give ourselves a break, you know, we really got to be so much kinder to ourselves and love ourselves so much more.
That word that you just used, witnessing, we have to witness ourselves, that level of awareness and mindfulness about where our head is at, the language we're using, how we are participating in the creation and the breakdown of something. All of that, right? It's all so important. And if somebody doesn't lead you to this is why I feel like for everybody who's listening to this right now, I want you to examine the idea I think it's fact, but for you, it may just be an idea at the beginning, but that you're not here by accident and that you're listening to this because you are meant to have this information, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone that's listening today is, you know, they've been divinely guided here by some force, some force that they can't see. But yeah, so I really think, like, so let's talk about witnessing. I think we come into marriage, part of our desire to, co-partner with someone, whether it's in a marriage or a long-term relationship, is because we want someone to witness our lives, and then we want to be seen, we want to be acknowledged. And, that's the role of the masculine in, the father is the, we're seeking approval from the father in our lives. And so when we go into a relationship, we're often seeking someone to witness and see us, and to be able to reflect back to us, who we are and how we're showing up, etc. And I think if we can take that really simple concept on board and ask ourselves, on a daily basis, whether you're in a relationship or not in a relationship, how am I witnessing myself? How am I seeing myself? And am I showing up in the way I really want to show up? Am I showing up in a way that empowers me, that is an expression of love at the fullest way that I can be? And if not, what's being reflected back to me? What are the bits that I need to learn? Because I really believe all relationships are an optimal opportunity for us to learn, to evolve. Like, our soul wants to be fully expressed as an expression of love, and all things, but particularly love.
Wow, I absolutely love that. I've been writing everything you're saying down. I think it's fabulous. Now, the thing that comes to mind for me is, what if you're in a relationship with someone who is volatile, or they have mental health issues, or they have an addiction of some kind, and that it tends to bring out the worst in us, doesn't it? And then how do you navigate that?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And, I think there's a couple of things here. So, as I said, all relationships are a learning opportunity. Mm-hmm. So sometimes when we get into relationships, we can be someone that perhaps overgives too soon. We can ignore our own inner voice. We can ignore signals that say, perhaps this isn't the healthiest relationship for me, or this relationship isn't right for me. And sometimes through the process of the relationship, we begin to realize that perhaps we're in a relationship with someone who's extremely toxic, or who's abusive, or, lots of, different angles, someone who belittles us. And so really, if you can not get attached, and I know it's difficult, because what happens is we take everything so personally. Mm-hmm. Like, we think that someone's behavior or the way they treat us is a reflection of our own worth. But actually, someone's behavior, the way someone is in a relationship, is a reflection of who they are. So it's actually not personal. And so if we can step back and say, well, what's my response? Because most of the time we're in reaction to other people's behavior. And this is where it does come back with the witnessing, because if you can recognize, okay, their behavior is not personal, it's telling me more about them than me, and my reaction or response, because a response is where you stop, you witness, and you make a choice. How am I going to choose to respond to this person's behavior? That is when you are in your power, and you're stepping back, and you're actually going, oh, well, hold on a minute. My reaction is about me. It's about my learning. It's about how I'm showing up. And so there's always a point in a relationship where if someone is treating you badly and it's toxic, et cetera, you have the point where you decide, obviously you work on it. You at some point, you start working on it. But if the person you're with is so ill or mentally unavailable or incapable, you really have to start to ask yourself, what is my evolution here? Why have I been called to this relationship? And it's hard for me to say, like, in one, to make a judgment call like this, but very often, my observation of clients that I work with, and just my experience of, people that I've worked with over the years, is that particularly women, when they get involved in a relationship that is extremely narcissistic, they will have at some point abandoned themselves. So they've lost their sense of self in the relationship for various reasons. And because of that, the relationship is there to help them reclaim their sense of self. And it's really for them to stop abandoning themselves, and for them to, come back into their personal power. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And what a liberating way to look at that. I tend to think that when we go through, especially in narcissistic relationships, I've been in narcissistic relationships, and I know the chaos and the confusion that it's constant. It doesn't stop. There's a lot of game playing. There's a lot of gaslighting. It never ends. And so this is, I think, where the deterioration of ourselves comes from, because we're
absolutely
trying to use logic and reason in a situation where there is no logic and no reasoning. So yeah, I think that way that you just explained it just totally, it liberates us and empowers us to see the opportunity in that for us to find ourselves. And then let me just say one more thing on that subject. While, I remind my clients, a lot of women come to me who have been in narcissistic relationships. So I teach a lot about that. And I think that it's just really, really important to remember that in the redefining of yourself, you are different now. You are going to be a different woman. So don't try to be who you used to be before him. Right? The evolution of our soul and the evolution of our journey is going to take you in a new direction. So let that happen and surrender to that. Right?
Oh yeah, I love that. And that's beautiful. I totally agree with you 100% there. And, to add to that, what I would say is that, your soul wants to evolve, like it wants to expand. We are always expanding. Our consciousness is constantly expanding. And like every single cell in your body a year from now will be a completely different cell. Yeah. So the body is constantly, the cells in your body are constantly, changing and healing, etc. And everything in the universe is energy. So when it goes, like you said, you can't use logical reason in relationships. You have to connect to your own, what I call like your emotional power center. Like you have to be at your core connected and centered within yourself. And part of that connection is with the source of divine love that is absolutely within you, 100%. Every single cell in your body is pure love consciousness. Now, when I say love transmutes pain, what happens most for most women and men, but people, when they go through divorce, is we believe that the love that we have in our life has left us because it's left in the physical form of the other person, which generally is the representation of love. Yeah. So we think that we come together with another person and whoopee, we create love. We're already love. We are already 100% love. And I don't believe in falling in love. And I tell you why, because if you believe you fall in love, there's this element of powerlessness around it. Like, oh, I met someone and I fell in love with them today. Well, if you fall in love, you can fall out of love. And how many women or how many men have heard someone say, oh, I fell out of love with you? Love is a choice. You choose to love someone. And what happens at the beginning of a relationship, you see the divine aspect of that being. And you also see all your disowned, like your projections, your projections of fantasy about what this person is to you. And usually 2 years in, you start to see your disowned projections of everything that's in your shadow that you don't like about yourself. You start to see in the other person. And that's when you've got to keep choosing love. And what happens over years and years and years, you can often end up in a case where you are, you go, oh, I just fell out of love with this person. But actually, you're just not liking what you're seeing in that person, who's often reflecting something back into you that you need to, own within yourself and evolve beyond. And so I really don't like that whole, like, let's go fall in love. I'm like, yeah, like we are love already. We're filled up. And when you go back to that sort of, divorce thing, when people shut down their hearts, they literally shut off love and they think that the love that they had, is not available. But actually, it's just you're totally disconnected from your own source of love. And that's what you need to do to come back to yourself and rebuild that emotional core and that emotional center. And from there, life grows, life expands, life blossoms. And also you heal. So that's what I teach.
Oh my goodness. I absolutely love that because this is a choice. And I do believe that is so, I've said it so many times in my life that we have to choose that person every day. We have to wake up and choose love every single day. That's, and the best part about this is that is that you're right. We didn't lose anything. We were disconnected from our own source of love within ourselves. That's a beautiful way to put that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I mean, and you know what's, like you say, you got to wake up every day and choose love. We got to choose it for ourselves every day. So the first part of healing, in divorce is choosing love for yourself and really deciding, like you, I know there are so many horrendous stories. And actually, my story wasn't that horrendous when I listened to other people's stories, but it was horrific in the fact that, it was my second marriage and I was madly, madly in love with my husband at the time. And whilst I knew we had problems, I never doubted us as a relationship. I never ever thought that he would just walk out, basically, which is what he did. And so it was horrific in that it turned everything I believed about the world and love and myself, it like ripped the carpet underneath me and like my world like went into a million tiny pieces. So I think that the thing is that, when this happens, we do have to decide, and this is the common myth that I just don't agree with, that time heals, time passes. And yes, maybe 10, 15 years later, you may feel better about it, you may heal. But how many, just the statistics for second marriages prove to me that time doesn't heal. People move on and they start new relationships, but they have the same problems that repeat themselves. And that's why it's so important to heal and to find your own source of love within you and to stop looking outside of you for love. And when you're constantly filling yourself up from love, on a daily basis, you wake up, you do whatever it is, your morning practices, your meditation, you take good care of yourself and you have good, healthy boundaries and you don't lose yourself in relationships. And, you slowly get involved in a relationship and you're looking consciously choosing a relationship. That to me helps you to go on to have really healthy, happy love after a divorce. And, I trained with Catherine Woodward Thomas, who wrote Conscious Uncoupling and Calling in the One. And she talks about happy, healthy love. And for me, it's like happy, healthy, conscious love. Like, how can I consciously become closer to you and remove all the blocks that prevent closeness? That's what I have in my new relationship. And it's beautiful. It's challenging. It's not always easy. But it's a beautiful way to hold love in my life, with all people in my life. But like, when I have issues, it's like, well, what's stopping me from being close to this person? And how can I move beyond that? So I take responsibility for that in my life. And I think we have to take 100% responsibility for how we feel in ourself and in our relationships.
Talk about lessons learned, hey? All the lessons from both of your past relationships and even the ones from before that, probably, right? Now,
yeah, definitely.
You said something to me the other day you said a lot of things to me when we were talking the other day that stuck with me, but this one thing has made me laugh, and I've actually passed along your advice. So you had said that in order to create the environment that you want to create with your ex, because it can be hostile and it can be volatile and you're going through court maybe, or the family court system or whatever it is, you used a sentence that made you nicer in your mind and in your heart with your energy towards your ex. What was that? Do you remember?
My good friend Paul.
Instead
of that beep, beep, beep. So yeah, my first husband, it was very clear to me. I was the technical bad person in the relationship. We'd had an on-off relationship. We got married. So we've been together for 6 years. And then 6 months after getting married, like I always wanted to get married. I was quite young. So we got married, I was 27. I'd been with him from the age of, 20, 22. And I desperately wanted to be married because I thought it was going to make me feel safe and secure. And we got married, and 6 months into the marriage, he changed. He became very sort of withdrawn. And I met someone and I fell in love and I had an affair, and I felt as guilty as you, like it was so out of character for me. And then I worked harder at the marriage, etc., etc. And anyway, 6 years later, we got divorced. And what happened, he wouldn't give me my divorce. So when we separated, he was really angry, like extremely, it was very hostile, very passive aggressive, and he wouldn't give me a divorce. And I just decided that I'd had like 12 years with this man, and I did love him, and he was a great man. He was lovely, but he just wasn't right for me. And he didn't want children, and I wanted children. So he changed his mind about that. I didn't marry him thinking he wanted, knowing he didn't want children. But anyway, so I just thought, I cannot hate this man, and I'm not going to. And I renamed him my good friend Paul. And so every time he would phone, or we'd have to communicate about the financial settlement, we didn't have children together, so that was easier. But what happened was, a year later, I'd met my second husband, and I fell pregnant like within 3 months of meeting him. So I was pregnant, moving countries, and I said to him, please, 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 will you give me a divorce? And he said no.
Wow.
So I decided, and this is also why I teach, you have to set a very powerful intention. I decided one day we will be friends again. And I decided I was just going to call him my good friend Paul. So whenever anyone talked about him and they badmouthed him, I just say, well, my good friend Paul, and my good friend Paul. So that was in 2000 we separated. 2001 I met my second husband. 2002 I had my son. In 2004, just so that people understand the timeline of this, 2004 my first husband had also moved to South Africa, quite bizarrely, different part of Africa. He phoned me and he said, please, can I come and stay with you? And because we had become friends by now. And I said, why? And he said, well, I've broken up with my partner, and I know you're the only person that's going to be able to help me with my problems. So he came to stay with me, with my second husband and my 2 children, in our house in South Africa.
Wow.
And said, give me relationship help. How amazing is that?
That's pretty amazing. I mean, you cleared the space, and I believe energy. I do believe in, I've learned so much in these last 3 years, mostly in the last year, really about energy work and the healing powers and setting those intentions about the vibration we want to live in. So it's relatively new for me, but I believe that you cleared the space for him to be able to be soul to soul with you.
Absolutely. And so the higher consciousness. So when I talk about higher consciousness, I'm talking about love, bliss, joy, gratitude, appreciation, all those emotions, and forgiveness and kindness, all those emotions are a higher elevated consciousness. So when a relationship breaks down, it breaks down at a low level of consciousness, betrayal, anger, frustration, depression. So many relationships break down because there's a depression, which depression is a disconnection from your spirit, from your energy. That's the spiritual definition, or certainly my definition of what depression is. So if you think about problems created at a lower consciousness, you have to rise above that consciousness. And so that's why if you go to love for yourself first and foremost, and you set an intention and a high standard about how you're going to behave in this divorce process, it may not doesn't automatically make all the problems go away, but what it does, it helps to transmute it and transform it easier, quicker, and less painfully for yourself. So it's, to me, being able to do that, and I'm not saying it was easy, it takes practice, it takes consciousness, it takes, that decision. I'm actually not gonna, I'm in a lot of Facebook groups, and it saddens me. I actually can't spend too much time in these groups because the slanging, the name calling, the blaming, the shaming, we all do stuff that's wrong. We all make mistakes. We're human. We're spiritual beings trying to have a human experience. And so for me, if you can just say to yourself, I am going to really set a powerful intention to be kind to myself and others during this process, to be generous of spirit, to be, as loving and compassionate with healthy boundaries. I always add that. Then you will honestly shorten your suffering. You will definitely shorten your suffering.
That's amazing. I love everything that you just said. And something that just came to mind while you were saying all of that too is it was what was really useful for me. And I didn't figure this out right away. So this is me looking back, and thinking, if I could do this part again, this is what I would do. I would have created a plan for how I was going to respond to certain behaviors, because then I would have been I would have had some kind of language to fall back on. I would have had a state of mind to put myself in. I would have given myself the permission to, take a minute or two to just breathe before responding, and to center myself and remember that the love and the compassion and the empathy is what needed to come first. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really good thing, because in the courses that I have, I talk about, how do you deal with someone who's really angry? And I grew up in an environment that was quite a lot of anger in my Irish family household at times. And I was always really afraid of angry people. I would, and that's where my throat problems came from. I learned to be quiet and not talk because it was a bit scary. So, well, very scary actually. But so one of the things is, if you can learn, when I trained as a psychotherapist, one of the things they said, if you get an angry person come and sit in the room with you and they're angry, the best thing you can do is like put your bottom firmly in the seat and just remain there. And actually someone's anger disperses. Okay. So I'm not suggesting that you do that, but there's certain ways that you can deal with angry people. You speak about the facts. You have to, make sure you're standing. You have to, put your body in certain positions. So when you learn these things and you feel more confident, and then you sort of really like be in your power center, like really like trust yourself and listen to your intuitive voice. Which a lot of the time we don't listen to our intuitive voice. We let our ego, just boom, gets in there and reacts to whatever's going on. And also when you realize this is not personal, this is this other person's pain. They're in so much pain as well as you, that they just want to lash out. And, people have different ways of expressing, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really important that, if you have some really simple tools and skills and, ways of responding, I'll come back to you about that. Keep to the facts rather than, the way you did this and all these sort of, certain ways you phrase your language. It really does help. And you're right. So it's good to have those ways of learning how to respond to other people, especially, if you feel powerless and disempowered around them.
So now let me also ask you this too, now that we're on the topic of, creating a plan, how would you suggest that we keep our energy really high? I mean, how do we do that in that and stay in that space? What is your advice around that?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Great question. I love this question. So there's a couple of ways that you can keep your energy high, but essentially like the light above us, the consciousness around us, everything's energy. So you need to connect to what I call source energy, which is up in the sky. If you literally look up in the sky and imagine like way, 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 way above your head, 300 feet, then you're connecting to source energy. And if you see it as light, golden light, white light, there's enough books out there about consciousness and light. And you imagine it coming right the way through you, through your crown chakra, through your eyes, through your throat, into your heart, down your body, your legs, your stomach, if you really imagine it, and then that it connects to the core of the earth, right down at the center of the core of the earth, and bounces back up through your heart. That way you're connected to energy above and below. And when you do that and you imagine like golden light flooding through you, like you just have a look at a picture of sunshine. Imagine there's a ball of sunshine in your heart and it's flooding out through you all the way around. What happens then is if you keep practicing that, you'll feel energy. You will literally feel it. That's an expansion. Okay, that's an expansion of yourself. So that's a way of connecting. And then if you actually just focus on your heart, in your heart area, so if you put your hand on your heart, that's where your heart is, and you actually ask your heart, what would be the most efficient, what would be the most easy response to this problem? And you wait, your heart will give you an answer. Yeah, because your heart is really intelligent. And that at that point, you're connected to source energy. So raising your vibration and raising your energy is really like gratitude journals, thinking about what you're grateful for, thinking of places, nature, being out in nature. That's a really great way of raising your energy and being like connected to your energy source. But for me, what I do is I meditate twice a day, every day. I walk in nature every day. If I'm not walking, I'm on a boat sailing. You know, and drink. I know it sounds really funny, but you have to move your body. So your breath, the way you breathe, but drink lots of water as well, because water helps energy to flow through us. And we are literally, you know, we are a moving flow of consciousness. We're just pure energy. So if you think low level thoughts, and I know it's so easy. I've been there, you know, like hate, blame, shame. Shame is actually one of the lowest consciousness. So if you have areas where you feel shameful about yourself or parts of your life, go and do some work with someone. Work with an energy person, work with a coach, work with a therapist. But you need, well, in fact, I would say work with a coach or an energy person first, because therapy, I love therapy. I'm a trained psychotherapist, but talking doesn't necessarily shift the energy. And we've spoken about that. But like, if you know you have issues around, you know, stuff that you feel real low density, look on the map of consciousness, Dr. Hawkins. And if you're depressed, definitely go and do some energy work with someone, because that will help you. The minute you raise your vibration up, to love, you will start to feel better. And in fact, anger is a better emotion than depression and shame, because anger calibrates at about 100 and I think it's 170 or 150, something like that. Yeah. So that's what I would say. Meditate.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Meditate twice a day. I love that. So I know this about you. You meditate when you first wake up in the morning, and you meditate again before you go to sleep at night.
No, I actually do meditate 3 times a day. Actually, I forget really, but I meditate. I do transcendental meditation in the morning, and I do an energy meditation as well. So I spend 30 minutes in the morning. TM's like 25 minutes, and then I do an energy meditation for 10 minutes. So it's 35 minutes, and then I actually meditate usually about 5 or 6 o'clock. I do another transcendental meditation, which is 25 minutes. And the reason I do that in the early evening is because TM is all about the energy. It's all about your energy and how you take. It's not about the actual meditative time. It's about the energy that you sort of re-energize in your body and take into your day, into life. So by meditating, like before my sort of evening, if I'm going out or cooking dinner, I have more energy to do what I want to do in the evening. And also because it energizes you, so you don't want to meditate TM transcendental meditation last thing at night, because you feel more energized. And then just when I go to bed, I do like a 10-minute meditation in my head, or I'll listen to a meditation as I go to sleep if I'm not with my partner. So that's what I do. So I technically, it's 3 little bits throughout the day.
Wow. I love that you put it during the day. I haven't had a lot of people talk about that, about how it brings you that kind of energy during the day. So that's really something different. Yeah. And
when I'm out, so because for me, like love is a consciousness that comes from all around me. I'm totally connected to it. So when I'm out in my garden, I'm walking my dog, I literally will just imagine that light is coming through my head. And, you know, that's what I do when I'm out in nature all the time. So we can all do that, you know, or you can do it while you're making a cup of tea and the kettle's boiling. Just stand there and think, let me connect to light. And the other...
Oh, sorry. No, please continue.
No, I was going to say one other thing, like, you know, these Himalayan salt lamps. Have you seen them?
I have.
They're also, I love them. So I've got one in my kitchen, and so it's by my kettle. And when I'm making tea, I just look at it and I just connect to the light, because it actually is, to me, like the light that I see in myself. So buy one of those. They're all really good for your home. And it will remind you, let me connect to source. So like, there's lots of little ways you can make it really easy to, you know, to remember you're an energetic being, and you're always connected, but you just forget.
Wow. So the other day when you and I did this powerful work together 2 years ago, and it was absolutely outstanding for me. And when we were starting to do that beginning part of this exercise, so it has to do with what we're just talking about. When everybody who's listening to this is trying to imagine this ray of light coming out of the top of your head, if you've never done this before, what helped me was if you can just imagine what it looks like when the sun breaks through the clouds and we see that ray of light just shooting down to the earth, and it's just there. If you're in that sun, you would feel the heat from that and the warmth from that space. And so this is what I was imagining when I was going through this with you the other day. And when you had said the golden light, that fit perfectly, because that's exactly how it felt. When you're standing in an actual ray of sun, you feel enveloped by this warmth and this love, right? So I just wanted to put that in there because we've mentioned it so many times. And if you can't connect to that on your own, just try to imagine that going through you.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely, Tanya. Love that.
Oh my goodness. Maxine, you have given us so much great stuff today. This has been a true honor and a true pleasure to do this interview with you.
My absolute pleasure. I just really feel for the suffering of people, ladies, men, women, and children, through divorce. And, my mission is really to turn that conversation from fear to love. And I'm very inspired by Marianne Williamson and her work and A Course in Miracles. And, I think that we can all have a transformation in our love lives through divorce. It doesn't have, it's not the end. It's an opening up. It's an opportunity.
Yes.
Anything I can do to help people with that is why I'm here on the planet. And it's an absolute pleasure to be here. So thank you for having me.
Wow. This has been amazing. Now, you did have a free gift, didn't you, that you wanted to offer?
Yes. So it's an it's an emotional power practice. It's something that we teach in the Calling in the One coaching program. And what it does is it really, one of the problems that we face is we're so disconnected from our feelings. We don't know what we feel, and we don't know what we need. And particularly when we're going through divorce, we have so many feelings, and we can feel stuck and overwhelmed. And so this practice is a really beautiful practice. I would start doing it in the evenings at home, where you just literally get present and witness yourself, and you witness your emotions, and you witness what you need. And the starting point of anything is when you can learn to acknowledge and give that to yourself, then you can start to create it externally. So it's a download. It's in a PDF, and there's also a little MP3 so you can listen to as well.
That's amazing. And for everybody who's listening, I will have that for you in the description of the show notes. So
Lovely.
Let me just say thank you so much for showing up today, Maxine. This has been absolutely amazing. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and sending lots of love out there.
Oh, thank you. And thank you to everybody who has been listening. You are listening to Thriving After Divorce Radio, and I am your host, Tanya Marie Dubé, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you again so much for joining us on the Thriving After Divorce Radio podcast. We're coming to you every Monday morning so that you can start your week with intention and some powerful advice for what you're dealing with. So please subscribe to this podcast and share it with your friends and your family. My goal is to help change 1 million lives with this work, because when you teach a woman, you teach an entire community. Everybody benefits and the love spreads. So please feel free to comment, review, share, and like. With your help, I know I can reach this goal. So have a beautiful day, and we will see you next week.